Welcome to Prepper Nation. I am John. Thank you. Yes, you, the person that is watching, the person that is listening, the person that's liking, subscribing, sharing this video out. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Truly mean that. So, well, this election is going to be a mess. The election cycle. I just read an op-ed earlier this morning on Fox because what I do, y'all, is I get up and sadly, I have to check the news, and I check a variety of sources every morning. I get that a lot of it's propaganda, but I still need to know what's going on and kind of collect everything and form an opinion. Hey, what are we talking about this morning? That sort of thing. I saw an op-ed on Fox, believe it or not, and they were saying, because of the investigation of Hunter and the fact that it may lead to Joe, Michelle Obama would be a prime candidate for the left. And I said, oh my God. I remember specifically probably a year, maybe a little bit less than a year ago, mentioning two names, saying for some reason, Liz Cheney's still there for me. I think Liz Cheney is a front runner for the left. And I can specifically remember saying if Michelle Obama runs for the left, that's a nightmare, because they don't even need to steal the election. The lady is popular for whatever reason. I'm not voting for, you know what I'm saying, or her husband or whatever. But she is very popular with the left. She is very popular with independents and things. And I mean, this would just be a landslide victory for the left. And so I guess now we've entered that phase of the election where they are trying to handpick the next candidate, in case Joe Biden is not the guy to run in 2024. I think they're starting to figure that out, and they're starting to go through the swamp. They're starting to go through and maybe handpick somebody else. They realize maybe Kamala Harris is in way over her head. So it's going to be nasty. And I need to say this before we move forward, because we're going to be talking about civil war, right? And what that would look like here in the United States. Full disclosure, nothing illegal on this channel. I do not advocate for anything illegal or immoral. People get mad when I say that. Somebody just last week on MD Creekmore's channel said something very nasty, called MD, I think, a coward or something. He put out a community post because MD Creekmore is on YouTube and he's not trying to, I guess, spearhead a revolution or a civil war. And as I told MD last week, I said, you're not a coward. People need to understand there are two types of people on YouTube that are trying to spearhead something like that: feds and complete idiots. Because this platform, YouTube, is heavily monitored. It's heavily left-leaning. Most people with a brain know that. So I don't know why anybody would be on YouTube expecting a revolution to start, or in this case, calling for civil war. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not doing that. Please, folks, do not go out and do anything illegal or immoral, okay? So full disclosure on that. It's way too heavily monitored over here, okay? And be careful. Look, if you're following a creator that is openly calling for that on a liberal platform that they know is heavily monitored, maybe rethink it. Why am I following this person? Is this person legit? But whatever. The point is, the election's going to be nasty, and here's how I know. All right. On social media, the extreme left, they're saying, if our candidate doesn't win, we need civil war here in the United States of America. They're just saying it. All right. They're not hiding it anymore. The extreme right on social media, they're saying if our candidate doesn't win, we need civil war. I've heard this, if Joe Biden does not win the election, I've heard the extreme left say we need, it's time to do something about it physically. And I've heard people say if Trump, is arrested or whatever, he's got that deal going on in Georgia, it's time to do something about it. We need to escalate things. And again, I'm telling you this morning, we don't need to escalate things, and I'm going to explain why, okay? Because this would mean civil war is a foregone conclusion. If the two extreme wings of this country, I get the argument, same bird, but still, same bird's got two wings, right? The two extreme tips are both calling for civil war. It's a foregone conclusion at some point, because you can never satisfy 335 million Americans at one time. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are not winning this election together. They're not going to hold hands up on stage and say we're both winners. You know, they're not just going to hand out participation trophies. Somebody is going to win, you know, and somebody's going to lose. Now, I don't even know, sitting here going through what we're going through, because what's happening is we should be talking about the issues in the United States. Plenty of issues in the United States. I just had a text conversation back and forth with my wife. My wife is upset because of the cost of living, specifically groceries. I'm telling her to calm down, right? I don't mean to put her on the spot, but I'm like, baby, you know, we're doing better than a lot of people. People are straight up struggling. This is an American problem. This is not liberal. This should not be politicized. Stuff costs way too much right now. We should be talking about the actual stuff that's taking place here, the issues in the United States. But what is happening on the campaign trail is you have Trump, you have the Republicans that are connected to Trump trying to pin a lot of stuff on Hunter. And I'm not sitting here saying he's not guilty. I think he is. And then they're trying to connect Hunter's mess to Biden. They're trying to disqualify Joe Biden. Meanwhile, on the extreme left, they're trying to disqualify Trump. They're trying to throw him under jail in Georgia. It's a mess. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's an absolute mess, and it's doing absolutely nothing to help the country. But you can't, in other words, again, you can't satisfy 335 million Americans. Just not going to happen. Some people are going to be upset after the election, if there's even an election. I've heard that argument, and I think there's some merit to that. We may not even have one with the mess that's going on right now. But, suppose we do have an election and one side or the other wins. Half the country is a powder keg at that point. And I think defaulting to civil war, I think that's a bad move. I think it's a bad place to be. I can't really think of another time in the United States when we've been this politically divided other than the Civil War. Back in the day, politicians were saying openly, we're leaving. We're taking our states and we're leaving if Lincoln wins. And that's exactly how it went down. So my question this morning, is that really what these people want, though? The ones that are openly calling for civil war. Again, I'm not one of those people, okay? They're openly calling for it. Is that what they want? Do they want years and years of fighting in their own communities, right? Their own main streets. It's not something you're going to watch on TV, folks. It's going to be here. You're going to be living it. Is that something these people want? Do you want decades of reconstruction after the fact? Reconstruction last time around was not a great thing. We're going to rebuild what we destroyed, but we have soldiers standing on the corners to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, okay? This is not 1861 to 1865. When people think of Civil War, they tend to think of the first time around, and many things have changed here in the United States. This would look more like, in my opinion, Russia and Ukraine. I think we would be seeing a lot of that. Do people really want that? What's taking place in Ukraine? Do they want that here in the United States? Bad enough to pay for it somewhere else across an ocean, right? But do you want it here? I agree that things are bad. I get it. People are pissed. I get it. Again, I just talked to my wife. She's pretty pissed because, again, the grocery bills just keep going up. Gas just keeps going up, right? And I agree that something needs to be done. But I'm saying maybe not something as drastic as defaulting to civil war. Because we're always talking about the meat grinder that's in Ukraine. Do you really want that meat grinder to be here in the United States? Do we really want that? Are we really so divided in this country that we're openly calling for a meat grinder war here in the United States, where mandatory conscription would be a reality on both sides? You know, the extreme left that's calling for civil war, they're bound to know they're going to be drafted. The extreme right, they're going to be drafted. You're not getting out of it. You know, whether you're team Trump or you're team Biden or team, Obama or team whoever, DeSantis, if there's a civil war and you're able-bodied, you're going to be fighting it. They're going to force you to fight it in much the same way Russia and Ukraine is doing, okay? Your finances, think about this, because every time I hear the argument of civil war, I'll hear conservatives say we're much tougher, we would win by a landslide. And I do think that conservatives are tougher by nature. I know I'm going to get some hate for that, but I think there's truth to that. All right, we're not as easily offended, for one. But think about it objectively. Your finances, if you still have money in the bank, or you're into the stock market or something like that, who knows, son? Maybe you invested in Bud Light. You've seen it tanking. It's a penny stock now. Thank the Lord. Maybe you're investing in that. Your finances are anchored in New York City. So if we see this country split in half, do you still think you're going to have access to your money, to your finances, to your retirement? Maybe you have 401k, maybe you're getting Social Security, maybe you're getting some sort of assistance from the federal government. If there's a civil war, that is gone. You're not going to have access to this anymore. Straight up. The federal government is not going to pay your retirement, your SSI, if you're sitting in what they view as another country. Not going to do it, especially during a time of war. Our online presence, everything's tied into online right now. All of that is pretty much anchored in Silicon Valley. Do you think you're going to have access to that? People think we're just going to have a civil war and we're going to wake up and we're going to be able to stream Netflix and we're going to be able to hop back on YouTube. You need to understand, during the civil war time here, you're losing the internet. You're probably losing the grid completely. You're not going to be able to access, again, digital funds. You're not going to be able to talk to people on the phone about your SSI checks. Hey, man, my SSI stopped coming. What do I do? You're looking at the possibility of fuel completely running out, especially in conservative America. Straight up. You're looking at food scarcity or just outright famine at some point. I get that we can grow food in the South. There are plenty of farms here, but farms would be targeted. They would become military targets, commercial farms, I promise you. You're looking at a world where there's little to no medication available. This ain't, hey, I'm going to drive to CVS. I guess those still exist. I don't know. I heard a bunch of them are going under. Or, hey, I'm driving to Walgreens. I'm picking up my medications. There may not be a pharmacy open. And when you go, there may not be medication available. Is this really a world that you want to live in? Insane levels of crime. So I think San Francisco is probably eclipsing, if not have already eclipsed, Chicago. They're both really bad spots, and New York City as well. But right now, these are confined to cities because cities are, they're ran totally different. I'm talking about insane levels of crime here in rural America. I'm talking about home invasions, stuff missing, cars missing, things being stolen out of the yard, people getting mugged when they come out of stores. Desperate times will lead people down desperate paths. It's not going to be safe anywhere that you go. And that's just the reality of a civil war. And this is all on top of a constant military threat. Meaning, no matter how rural you live, you have no idea if the jets that are flying over are yours or on the other team. You don't know if something's going to be hit. You don't know if and when a convoy is coming down the street, if they're going to seize everything you have, what they're liable to do to you and your family. This is the reality when it comes to civil war. And this is why I don't think we should be cheerleading, okay? Americans should not want a civil war. This should be an absolute last resort. If we learned anything from the first Civil War, we should understand at the end of the day, we're all Americans. And I get it. I do. A lot of the extreme left are completely woke and they do not think like us anymore. I understand. But what they do is they live in their own little enclaves, their own little bubbles, their Silicon Valleys. They live in their San Franciscos. They live in their, Los Angeles and all of this stuff. We still have some semblance of the United States here in the rest of America. It is what it is. And think about it like this. Our enemies would love to see a civil war here in the United States. That in itself should tell you something. When the Chinese, when the North Koreans, when the Russians, when whoever, when they're looking at the United States with fingers crossed, hoping that we go into a civil war situation. Why? Because there are no winners in a civil war. We're coming out worse in the end. I don't care which side you're on. The country is going to be torn apart. The economy is going to be torn apart. So many lives lost in a meat grinder. We're going to become a weakened nation through civil war. That's the ultimate outcome. Scariest of all, and I know this is not going to be a popular comment, but I've got to say it anyway. What if we go into a civil war situation and conservatives lose? It's happened before, right? What if conservatives lose? I get it. People are going to be saying we would never lose, but when you enter into a civil war, that's what both sides are thinking, you know what I mean? It's just like the election. There's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. What if conservatives go into a civil war that they cheerlead for and then they get beat? Then what? No more Constitution? No more Second Amendment? It's not like you can protest at that point. You've already lost the war. This could be a situation where the winning side, let's say DC, for example, wins the Civil War. Theoretically, and they say we're scrubbing the Constitution completely. You're absolutely at the mercy of the people that defeated you. And you have to accept whatever terms they offer you at this point. It's going to be a nasty rest of the decade. Can promise you that. This election and everything that follows. And I sure do hope that you're prepping. Folks, this is John with Prepper Nation. Let me know what you think in the comments. Agree, disagree, whatever the case may be. I look forward to those comments. Y'all take care and God bless.